An Israeli lawmaker just jumped into a massive, ancient pool south of Jerusalem and said out loud what a lot of people have been thinking. This belongs back in Jewish hands. Because this isn't just any body of water. These are Solomon's pools. And 2,000 years ago, water from this exact system flowed all the way north to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. I live here in Israel, and I go up to the Temple Mount myself. So when I saw this story, the minister in the water, the vow to take it back, and the reaction it set off, I paid attention, because almost no one outside this country is covering it yet. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what Solomon's pools are and how they fed the temple, why Israel is moving to take the site back right now, and how this one reservoir is really just the newest front in something much bigger, Jewish sites being reclaimed one by one all across the land. So let's follow the water. It's going to take us somewhere you're not expecting, all the way to a river in the book of Ezekiel. So here's what's happening right now in the summer of 2026. Solomon's Pools sits just south of Bethlehem, an area that's been controlled by the Palestinian Authorities since the 1995 Oslo Accords. And for decades it's sat neglected. The reservoir is drying out, a wall collapsed in 2016, and the whole site is falling apart. And how it ended up in the hands of the Palestinian Authority is almost hard to believe. By the account of the people now working to reclaim it, when the Oslo maps were drawn, the pools were meant to stay on the Israeli side. But there was a mistake on the map. The words Solomon's Pools got placed inside the town of Efrat, while the actual pools fell just behind the line into Palestinian-controlled territory. The slip of a pen and the temple's own water source was signed away. And now Israel is moving to change all that. And not just with speeches. The town right above the pools, Efrat, has started taking the site back with its own hands. They cut a brand new road straight down into the valley, so for the first time in decades, Jews can walk down and reach the pools directly. The local foundation behind it talks about turning these ruins into a place of national glory, the Beach of Judea. And people are coming, tours of hundreds walking down the hill to stand in a place most of them had only ever heard of. And the man who said it most directly was M.K. Tzvi Sukkot. Here he is standing in front of the pools. He said, "I'm coming out of the water now, the sweet waters of Solomon's pools. 3 enormous stone pools our forefathers built in the Second Temple period that carried water from here, biblical Tekoa, to the pilgrims in Jerusalem. There were long aqueducts here, and this water served the pilgrims at the temple. The place needs to return to our hands. Come enjoy the water and bring this place back." And that's not me reaching for the temple connection. That's a sitting member of the Israeli Knesset telling you straight. This is the water that once served the temple in Jerusalem, and it needs to come home. Now here's what tells you just how serious it's gotten, because the other side heard all this too. And they didn't just object. Word came from the local village council that the PA cabinet was coming that Wednesday to lay a cornerstone, the first stone of a new mosque, right there on the pools. Build a mosque, plant a flag, lock the site in as purely Islamic, the same play that's been run before. Then Israeli reporters got wind of it and put the story out, and the response was fast. Tzvi Sukkot was ready to go straight down there and stand in the way himself, but it never came to that. The general commanding Israel's entire central region ordered his soldiers to prevent it. The ceremony was called off, and that cornerstone was never laid. And this wasn't just holding a line for a day. The very next morning, Israel's heritage minister, Amichai Eliyahu, walked the site himself, and his ministry put 10 million shekels behind it, real money, to rebuild the complex, open it up as Solomon's Pools Heritage Center. You don't fight like that over an old reservoir nobody cares about. To understand why this water is worth all of it, you have to know what it actually did. All right, so let's clear something up, because this matters. Are these actually King Solomon's pools? Well, here's the honest answer, and it's actually better than the legend. The pools you can see and touch today aren't from Solomon's time. They're from the Second Temple period, built by the Hasmoneans and Herod. So no, these structures aren't 3,000 years old. The name comes from one verse in the book of Kohelet, where Solomon says, I made myself pools of water. But the water is the real story. These 3 pools sat at the head of an aqueduct, a stone channel that carried living, running water more than 20 kilometers through the hills all the way to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And in the temple, that water was working water. It washed the blood of the offerings off the courtyard floor every single day. It filled the great copper basin where the priests purified their hands and feet before they served. It fed the ritual baths, including for the immersion of the high priest on Yom Kippur, the holiest service of the year. The whole temple ran on water, and a good part of that water started right here. And this water system didn't die with the temple. It was patched and rebuilt over and over by the Romans, the Ottomans, the British, and the line kept carrying water toward Jerusalem on and off for the better part of 2,000 years, until it was finally cut a few decades ago. But this isn't a dry ruin. These are the waters of the temple service, the spring beside them still running, filling the pools the PA left for dead. And if there's going to be a third temple, it's going to need living water again, which is exactly why what's happening to this site right now is bigger than one reservoir. Because Solomon's pools isn't the only place this is happening. Once you see the pattern at the pools, you start seeing it all over the country. The same story playing out site after site. Go down to Hebron, to the cave of the patriarchs, where Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov are buried. For almost 30 years, an Oslo-era deal handed the Palestinian Authority and the Muslim Waqf control over what could be built or repaired there. And Jewish renovation was blocked. In 2026, Israel canceled that deal and took the authority back. And now Israel is restoring the site, including a new roof built over the Jewish prayer section, put up over the Waqf's objection. Now go north to Kever Yosef, to Joseph's tomb in Shechem, a site that was smashed and burned, and Jews are returning to it, rebuilding and praying there again. And the wave has reached the Temple Mount itself. Remember the man who jumped into Solomon's pools? That same Knesset member, Tzvi Sukkot, went up during the festival of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, and took the lulav and the etrog, the 4 species, and waved them right there on the mount, a temple-era mitzvah performed on the mountain where the temple stood. No member of Israel's parliament had ever done that before. On an earlier ascent to the Temple Mount, someone asked him how long it had been since he'd last gone up. 14 years, he said. Then what made you come back now? Listen to his answer. He said, for years the police wouldn't let me up. This thing is unbelievable. Back then when I went up, I bowed for a second, and it was straight to the station, a criminal indictment. Today they come, they pray, they bow, they sing, in groups. You won't believe it. 14 years ago, bowing on the Temple Mount for a single second got you charged with a crime. Today, it's prayer, out loud, in groups, on the very same mountain. And it's not just prayer, it's even reached the drinking water on the Temple Mount. Here's something most people don't know. Until just a few years ago, the water fountains on the Mount were effectively Muslim only. Jews weren't allowed to drink there at all. Police would physically block them, and Jews who tried got removed, even arrested. And the reason why is the part you have to hear. A Jew says a blessing before he drinks, a few words of thanks to God, and that blessing was treated as forbidden prayer on the Mount. But that changed around 2020. Jews are allowed to drink up there now. Not fully, not freely, but allowed. What Jews had been calling an apartheid fountain on the Temple Mount, Arab only, Jews dragged away for trying, is now a place a Jew can fill a water bottle on a hot day and say a blessing over it. From dragged away from a fountain to drinking and thanking the Creator. That's the change on the mountain itself. So put it together, Solomon's pools, Hebron, Joseph's tomb, a water faucet on the mount. This is not one story, it's one movement, showing up in a dozen places at once. Jewish sites and Jewish water coming back. And there's an ancient text that saw this exact thing coming and put it in terms of water rising. Actually, before we get to that, I want to hear from you. Have you been to any of these places yourself? Solomon's pools, Hebron, Joseph's tomb, the Temple Mount? Tell me what it was like Or if you haven't been there yet, what's the one place you most want to visit someday? Let me know down in the comments. I told you at the start to follow the water because it ends somewhere you wouldn't expect, in the book of Ezekiel. In chapter 47, the prophet Ezekiel is shown the temple, and he sees water coming out from under it, flowing east. A man with a measuring line walks him into it. He measures 1,000 cubits, and the water's at his ankles. Another 1,000, the water's at his knees. Another 1,000, now it's up to his waist. And another 1,000, and now it's a river Ezekiel can't cross on foot. Water to swim in. It runs down to the Dead Sea, the deadest water on earth, and heals it. Suddenly the sea is full of fish, and trees grow along the banks. And here's the strange thing about that river. Nothing feeds it. A normal river gets deeper because streams pour into it along the way, but not this one. It has one source, under the temple, and it just swells on its own. A trickle, and then against nature, it becomes a sea. You can take Ezekiel's river completely literally, a real, miraculous river that will pour out of the Temple Mount to heal the Dead Sea. That's a fair reading. But Rabbi Avi Grossman of Machon Shiloh looks at that river and says it's a picture of exactly the moment we're living in. And his reading is more grounded than you might expect. The water, he says, isn't literal. All through the Hebrew Bible, water is a picture of Torah, of teaching flowing out from its source. So what is this river? It's the pull to go up to the Temple Mount, and the teaching that spreads out from the Jews who do. Listen to what he says.
The teachings from the groups that visit Har HaBayis are going to become stronger and stronger, and they're going to lead to this redemption. Not that there's going to be literally, a spring coming forth from Har HaBayis. This is a mosque, okay? And we're seeing it happen in our days. So I'm very happy about that.
He calls the water a mashal, a metaphor. It starts as a trickle, just a handful of Jews. And as more come, the teaching deepens and spreads until it can no longer be held back. And Rabbi Grossman is not alone in interpreting this water as a metaphor. One of the great classical commentators, 15th century Rabbi Yitzhak Abarbanel, says it outright. The water is the Torah, the knowledge of God, flowing out from Jerusalem. In his words, it goes forth not only to Israel, but to all peoples and nations who will accept it. The prophets, he says, always call the deep truths of God water. So the river rising out of the temple is a picture of the whole world, little by little, coming to know its creator. Rabbi Grossman takes that same ancient image and points at it right now and asks a simple question. What if we're watching that first ankle-deep stage right in our own time? And the rabbi points to something you can stand on. In the vision, the water comes out from the eastern side of the temple. And the eastern side is exactly where Jews go up to pray and teach Torah on the mountain today. So the trickle in the prophecy flows out through the very spot where the real-life change is beginning today. Because Grossman isn't reading this out of a book. He's watched the water rise with his own eyes. He lays out the stages.
When someone wants to bow down in prayer on Har HaBayis, they would beat him and arrest him. They throw him down. When it's 10 people, they can't do anything about it because there's too many people already to deal with them. And when you had a whole group of 40 people at once bow down Har HaBayis, it was singing and dancing.
And his own story is that trickle in a single person. Years ago, he had to sneak up alone, slipping in among a group of non-Jewish tourists. A polo shirt, a cowboy hat, a bottle of water, one Jew hoping not to be noticed. Now he stands in a crowd of Jews going up. And there are several organized group prayer services every morning and afternoon. That's what he means when he says,
it's up to your ankles. It's up to your waist. Okay? Suddenly you won't be able to control it anymore. That's what's going on here.
Now look back at where we started. A minister swimming across an old reservoir. Deep water, the kind you have to swim. But as a movement, this is still only ankle deep, the very beginning. And it's easy to look at that and think, it's small, it's just a trickle. But that's the whole point of Ezekiel's vision. It always starts ankle deep, and then it rises. Solomon's pools, Hebron, Joseph's tomb, a faucet on the mount. The water is already climbing past the ankles. It's rising, and it's drawing us to the temple. And the day the whole world draws close to God. Because remember what Abarbanel said, this water was never meant for Israel alone. It flows out from Jerusalem to every nation that will receive it, and it heals everything it touches. If you want to stay updated on the rising movement to build the third temple, the real on-the-ground story from here in Israel, this is the place. Subscribe so you can be notified when the next video comes out, and I'll see you in the next update.